Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask actually a fairly complex question. It seemed like a simple question at first, but it's actually a little more complex when you look at it. But I think it's something we should delve into because it's the sort of question people ask really often. Now, he asked a little bit about ectomorphs, which is one of the somal types, and aesthetics. And he did point out, and I'm glad he said aesthetics meaning just leanness, not what we think of as more of the classic aesthetics that bodybuilders look at. Because the problem is that what people oftentimes associate with being an ectomorph body type actually wouldn't be hold the classic aesthetics, because that requires a really broad shoulders and a large rib cage with a smaller waist, smaller joints, things like that. But what we need to make clear up front is that somotypes are actually not real. This is pseudoscience. It's been thrown out many, many years ago. For some reason, just the bodybuilding world and some elements of the fitness world seem to hold on to this. There's no reason to do so. In fact, a lot of the things that people ascribe to these body types would actually be fairly rare individuals that they try to throw into these three groups. For example, they'll oftentimes describe the really thin person with a small bone structure as having a really fast metabolism. That's actually very rare. You don't see a whole lot of that. People who have thicker bone structures and bigger, fuller bone structures and who are larger individuals will have a much higher metabolism the majority of the time. People who are considered to be ectomorphs, the reason that they tend to be really, really thin is because of the fact that they are generally undereaters with low appetites, and they're oftentimes hyperactive. These are the people who you think of as really thin. They're either really, really active, fidget a lot, they're hyper, combined with a fairly low appetite, or just someone with a really, really low appetite will tend to be very, very thin and think that they eat a lot. And case in point, I've seen many people over the years who actually claim this. They'll claim that they're a big eater, they eat tons of food, they struggle to gain weight. That is actually a dead giveaway that there's a problem, because someone who claims that they're eating a lot but their weight doesn't fluctuate, or they struggle to gain weight, and it just isn't true. Because if they were fluctuating their eating patterns, something like eating more for a while, their scale would go up no matter what. Your metabolism wouldn't change based on that, and you wouldn't just stagnate by eating more food, you would gain weight. So what you usually see is that these people underreport what they're eating, and what I found is that when you actually watch them and hang out with them a bunch and then make them track what they eat, the people who have this problem oftentimes think that they eat a ton of food, and then you find out that they eat 2,400 calories a day, and they work out 4 days a week, and they are very active physically outside of that. Well, it's no wonder that person weighs 160 pounds. But you see a ton of that, and these people are convinced that they are overeaters, that they eat a ton. And what tends to happen is these are people who have a low appetite, they don't crave a wide variety of foods, and you start asking them what do they enjoy. I did one of these last year. A friend of mine had mentioned this problem. He wanted to start working out again, but he mentioned that he doesn't like to eat a lot, and he's the classic, which you guys think of as an ectomorph. It's just an undereater. I started asking him, well, what do you like to eat? He's like, I love to eat tons of foods, and I started trying to get him to name them. He couldn't, and he was saying, well, I struggle to gain weight. I said, why don't you eat sandwiches? He goes, well, I don't really like bread. I said, well, how about pasta? He's like, I don't like pasta. I'm like, well, how about rice? Don't you try eating some rice or oats? He's like, I don't like those either. I'm like, well, what do you like to eat? And he had to think about it for a long time. And he said, I think I kind of like to eat hamburgers. Like, I'll eat a whole hamburger by myself. And he's convinced that he eats a ton of food. And then you look at it and it's like, no, dude, you're 140 pounds for a reason. And it's because they're undereaters. They don't crave food the way a lot of other people do. Now, does this predispose them to being more aesthetic as you guys think of? Yes, absolutely, because most of us have the opposite problem. People like me, I struggle with overeating. I tend to eat way more than I need to gain muscle. And actually, most guys out there in this community, when they bulk, they usually eat more food than they really need to gain the size they need to gain. And it's because, again, the prevalence of drug use, fat-burning drugs, things like that, they're given examples by guys who probably, without the fat-burning drugs in the mix that they're oftentimes using, a lot of those guys would really want to eat about 1,000 or 1,500 less calories a day or more than they currently eat. But the drugs allow them to stay a little leaner. And guys who might even be at a similar body weight or even a lighter body weight shouldn't even use their same ratios versus their body weight, because these guys are going to put on less body fat as a result of using certain drugs that are oftentimes even still used for bulking. So especially guys on the internet, they advocate eating way more than you need, and a lot of their followers end up getting really fat. And it's just one of the unfortunate trends in this industry. Most of these guys should probably be eating a lot less than they're eating. They would probably gain just as much muscle. They might not gain as much total mass and strength as leverage is, but in terms of having an ideal body fat for even being athletic or a strength to weight ratio, most guys out there that I see, the majority should be eating less. The only guys who struggle with need to be eating more are the chronic undereaters, particularly when they're really physically active. So what does this come down to as far as answering the question? Well, that basically means the ectomorph is going to stay a lot leaner. This is the guy who is going to struggle to get in enough calories because, again, he's going to tend to be hyperactive. He might fidget a lot. He might like being really, really active, might have a physical job on top of it, combined with a low appetite. This is the guy who you're going to see eating Pop-Tarts and following if it fits your macros and just trying to cram in any junk carbs or whatever he can get sometimes just to hit his numbers to gain a pound a month. And it's because, again, this person will tend to be a chronic undereater, physically active. That guy is going to struggle to put in enough food. But the advantage is going to be he is always going to be leaner when he bulks than other guys. So it will make sure he's going to gain muscle a little slower. He's definitely going to gain muscle slower. But he is also going to stay leaner as a result. And when he does want to get even leaner than he is, it's not going to take him much effort to reach his goal. He just has to cut back eating all the extra stuff that he has to force feed himself when he wants to lose body fat. He may not even need to change his activity. He may not need to change his training schedule, add cardio, or anything to get down to the body fat he wants to get. And he's going to tend to gain a lot less body fat as a result of it. So these guys will tend to be more aesthetic, as a lot of guys are putting it, in terms of body fat because of this. So long story short, yes, to answer your question, they will absolutely be leaner as a general rule, but it comes down to the fact that they have much, much lower appetites. They don't like a wide variety of foods or crave foods the way a lot of other people do. So they're going to tend to just eat less calories overall. So they're going to be leaner. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.